Hello everyone. In this lesson, we'll continue organizing the project. Now let's start preparing the basis for our animation. We'll create an animatic from which we will further assemble individual scenes. We need an animatic to see how the scenes will go one after another, and what approximate timings each scene will have. We need to create a new composition. For 25 seconds for now, with a full HD resolution. That is, with dimensions of 1920 by 1080 pixels. Or if your computer is powerful enough, set it to 4K, which corresponds to dimensions of 3840 by 2160 pixels. However, you should keep in mind that during the course we'll use Full HD. Otherwise, we may have different layer parameters such as position and scale. Therefore, be attentive and think well. The next parameter is the frame rate. When working on the promo video, we came to the conclusion that 24 frames is the most suitable option. Our project uses frame-by-frame animation that looks good at reduced frame rates. Here we've chosen 12 frames per second, because of the special dynamics when characters are running in scene 5. This is exactly half the frequency of the entire video. This frequency ratio will look good and easier to animate. So let's set it to 24. Another requirement is the background color. It is better to choose a neutral gray color, relative to which any illustration has optimal contrast. Dark and light objects will look equally good, and we won't need to adjust the color of this background from illustration to illustration. And it will also help us to avoid issues with color perception. On white and black backgrounds, colors may appear lighter or darker than they actually are. Therefore, the gray background is our best friend. Okay, let's name this composition Motion Pro 1. And click OK to create the composition. Usually I try to add a number to the title of all compositions, as well as for naming files. This is necessary for various iterations of the work to avoid inventing a new name for each option. In addition, when you duplicate layers, After Effects automatically adds a number at the end if there is none. And if the number is there, it will be increased by 1. So this is very convenient. Now let's start assembling illustrations for the animatic. Let's move our illustrations of frames into this composition. Expand the Frames folder and move the first frame into it. It is larger than we need, so let's reduce its scale so that the white stripes are not visible. Somewhere up to 64%. Let's make this first scene 11 seconds long. In order to not refit other layers, we will split this layer into 2 parts at 11 seconds. We'll do it by pressing Ctrl-Shift-D or by selecting Split Layer from the Edit menu. Now let's replace the new layer with the second scene, transferring the file to it while holding down Alt. Let's make the second scene last 3 seconds, and also divide the layer at 14 seconds. During the work on the video, we've decided to skip the illustration of the third scene, so instead of it, we will insert the illustration of 4 scenes. Okay, let's keep this scene last 2 seconds. At 16 seconds, trim the layer again and replace the new layer with the 5th frame. Another scene will be 6 seconds long. Trim the layer one last time at 22 seconds and replace it with frame 6. And now let's add a music track to this composition. Great, that's all. Our animatic is ready. This composition can be duplicated and named Motion Pro Animatic. To estimate the duration of scenes, you can turn on this button at the bottom left of the additional columns, with information about the start and end times of each scene, as well as their duration. Now it's time to start preparing the working compositions for all the scenes. After we've finished animating all the individual illustrations, in Lesson 8 we'll start assembling all the illustrations together in these scene compositions. We are not starting to do this early, but in order to demonstrate to you several more approaches to work and additional tools that we will further use in each lesson. Before we go any further in preparing the project, we want to introduce you to the workflow for using custom scripts. What exactly are scripts in After Effects? In a nutshell, this is a set of actions script that After Effects performs automatically when the script runs. For example, resize all selected compositions and layers inside them, shift layers in time by a specified interval, create new layers, or maybe all of this at the same time. Aside from highly specialized scripts, such scripts mainly solve After Effects problems such as handling multiple layers, keys, compositions, and other items. Out of the box, After Effects has very few such features. Without scripts, you have to manually deal with monotonous changes of dozens or even hundreds of parameters. In general, scripts can be divided into two types, in which there is an interface and in which it is not. First, at startup, About opens a panel with a bunch of different buttons, fields, and other settings. These are quite flexible tools that extend the basic functionality of After Effects and have a wide range of configurable parameters. The second type of scripts without a visual interface. Instead of showing an interface with which to interact, such scripts immediately perform a set of prescribed actions. For example, the standard double up script that comes with After Effects. It is located in the File Scripts menu. It simply duplicates the contents of the composition and places those layers on top of each other, doubling the height of the current composition. But such scripts can be flexible too. In fact, such a script increases the height of the composition if its width was greater than the height. If we run this script again, now the contents of the composition will be duplicated and positioned on the side, because now the height of the composition is greater than its width. This suggests that such scripts can be adaptive, the script of which will depend on the set of specified parameters. And it is these scripts without interfaces that we will most often use in the course. You may ask why. Scripts and plugins are very useful tools, without which After Effects would not be as popular. Sooner or later, collecting scripts turns into a spaceship interface. The fact that it was intended to simplify our life complicates it a little, albeit at a different level of possibilities. Of course, this problem is partially solved by workspaces. It's a good approach to organize your different work steps into separate spaces with your own set of panels. But the problem of such scripts remains. In fact, rarely does anyone use more than 20% of the capabilities of each script. Most often, we need literally several functions of each of them. The development and use of custom scripts without interfaces is designed to solve this problem. Each script will be assigned one clear task or a specific set of actions. This will save us from unnecessary actions with the interface. Design without design. But if scripts with an interface are always in sight, then the question arises, how convenient is it to work with scripts without it? In general, After Effects has 4 standard ways to run scripts. The first is to launch them from the Window menu. Here, scripts are displayed from the After Effects internal Scripts UI panel folder, and it is mainly used to run scripts with an interface, which is definitely not right for us. 2 more options are found in the File Scripts menu. The script file can be run from anywhere in the system using the Run Script File function. But this is very long. You can also select any script from the list, if such a file was placed in the Scripts folder manually, or automatically using the Install Script File function. Such a list is also not very convenient to use for frequently used scripts. But this list has one advantage, another way of launching. You can assign your own shortcut to each script in it, and then the application of the script will be as fast as possible. Now I will show how it works using one of my favorite examples. Script add parented null to each selected layer adds a null object in the center of each selected layer and binds this layer to it. Each time doing such work manually is tedious and unnecessary. The script does an excellent job with this work. Adding a shortcut to the script has an even better effect on the workflow. In the keyboard shortcuts window in the list of commands, we will find this script in the File Scripts menu. For this script, I have set the shortcut Alt-N. Now every time after selecting any layer and pressing Alt-N, the script will be instantly executed. Unfortunately, this list has its own limitations, and it will not be possible to add a large number of scripts to it. But I recommend adding the most frequently used ones this way. That's all that After Effects provides us out of the box. Now let's talk about additional features using third-party scripts. There is no way without them. Such scripts without an interface can still be organized into one panel using scripts such as kbar2, mocode, ft-toolbar2. All of them are paid, but they are worth it, which you will see throughout the course. In such panels, each built-in script can have its own name, icon, description, and a lot of additional features. You can add not only scripts to them, but also effects, presets, expressions, and menu items. But we only need scripts. Another advantage of scripts such as kbar is the display of several panels, each of which can display a different set of buttons. For our course, we created our own script with a panel of embedded scripts. It contains all the scripts that we will use in the course. We've broken them down into several categories to keep the panel from getting too big. We will not talk about all the scripts right away, but in each new lesson we will learn how to use them correctly in the right situation. For those who are interested, we have added a document with a description of each of them. All of them together provide a different work approach in which we get rid of a lot of routine activities, speed up our work, and free up time for rest and more important and interesting tasks. Before we start actively using them, let's immediately clarify some points. These mini scripts do not fully replace large front-end scripts and plugins. They only perform predefined actions. In order for them to be executed with other settings, you need to go into the code and change the parameters or code manually. These scripts are as simple as possible. We deliberately did not add many additional checks to them, which are necessary in large scripts. This is to keep them compact, make quick adjustments to them, and be able to make a new script in a short period of time. In the course, we will tell you how they work, what they consist of, how they can be changed, and how to write your own. For your next level, it is important for you to learn not to use someone else's workflow, but to learn how to build your own, which will be better suited for you personally. As you continue to grow, we advise you to switch to specialized scripts like kbar, mocode, ft-toolbar to create your own personal workflow. We have attached all the files to the lesson, and you can freely edit them for yourself. If you already have kbar2 and you are using it, we have attached a JSON file with a library of all these scripts and panels to the lesson. You can immediately add them to yourself, just be careful if you do not back up your current set of panels in the settings. This file will completely replace all your scripts and you may lose them. And now, with new knowledge, we will continue to prepare the project and try to use several such scripts so that you begin to understand how they work and why they are needed in practice. Further, for the organization of the project, a series of routine actions takes place, which we will now describe in detail and immediately show our solutions for automating such processes. Let's start by using markers. There are many uses of markers in After Effects. Most often they are needed for taking notes. For example, marking areas that are important to yourself. In our practice, we mainly create them for orientation in a project, to mark where each scene begins and ends. When we create a complex nested composition structure, we start to get lost in them. Personally, I get lost already for several nested compositions. And when there are 5 or 10 of them, I often have to switch between external and internal compositions in order to navigate the layers. And that's not cool. There are tons of ways to deal with this. For example, a tree structure with the tab key, and a structure of nested compositions called the composition panel. But they only help to switch between them faster. They do not give an understanding of the project timeline structure. You can navigate in time using markers. The peculiarity of markers is that when we create a marker with a composition, all subsequent pre-comps will include external markers. And even if such a composition with a marker inside is placed in another composition, then its markers will be displayed on the layer. The main problem with such markers is that unfortunately they do not sync after changing their location on a layer or in a composition. In our main composition, we can manually create a set of markers when each new frame begins, or it can be done automatically using our script. To do this, open the project organization section in the panel. The very first script, layers to markers, will automatically create a marker where each selected layer starts. Select all frame files from top to bottom and press this button. Cool. A very simple task is solved as quickly as it should. The second reason why I need a marker, I got in personal mistakes. One of the most common problems is to create a composition that will have a duration exactly in the original measured timing. That is, if we immediately take and precompose each layer of the frame. Almost never this duration of the scene does not remain the same. It is good if it is shorter, but if it's longer, then you have to adjust the duration of all layers inside. And this is actually not a big problem, but time-consuming. Sometimes for animations, you need to move the animation keys to the first frame of the scene for looping or correction. This leads to the fact that the keys are no longer visible, and this is also a problem that is often forgotten. You will remember this for some period of time, but not for long. And if you transfer the project to other animators, it will become a headache for them. Therefore, it is a good practice to create a composition with a margin of time at the beginning and end of the composition. And in order not to forget where our actual beginning and end of the animation is, these very markers help. So how is this done manually? Let's start by precomposing the first frame's layer. Let's name it FR1. Go to the settings for this composition and increase the duration of the composition. For example, by a second. Offset the precomposition of the scene by about half this new second. And just in case, cut off the layer at the beginning and end. We can now transfer such a composition to the frames folder. Inside this composition, we increase the duration of the layers so that they do not abruptly interrupt. And the last thing we do is adjust the position of the markers. That is all. Now at the beginning and end of such a composition, we have a margin of about half a second. This will save us from several problems in the future. But repeating this over and over for every composition is not the funnest thing to do. This is of course the ideal task for a script. We have collected all these actions in one script, D-animatic, which is located right after the first one. To execute it, you need to select the layers from top to bottom and just click on the button. All layers will be precomposed, and additional 10 frames will be added at the beginning and end, and the layers will be trimmed at the beginning and end. Markers will stay where they should. The work area will be positioned exactly at the beginning and end of the current frame so that the animation plays where it needs to be. And as a bonus, new compositions are placed in folders with scene names. And this is also not just that. When we precompose layers, these precompositions are automatically positioned in the project where the current composition is. For clarity, if I create several layers inside any of the scenes and try to apply a precomposition to them, they will be located in a folder of the current frame. This will take advantage of an After Effects feature to automate sorting of items and eliminate the chaos in the project. And this is very cool. Another small detail. Our scripts will automatically generate item names according to our requirements. When we manually work with them, for example, create dozens of compositions, we do not have to manually add a lower dash for prioritization or at the end of a number for numbering. Several scripts in the same project organization section will automatically place them on all selected compositions. Then our projects will look their best. So it looks like everything is ready to fill the scenes with animations. Finally, I'll show you a few more possibilities. Let's remember one drawback of markers. If we need to adjust the time and duration of scenes, we will have to change the location of markers in all compositions inside. If there are a dozen or 100 such compositions, then this becomes a problem. Therefore, most often this technique with the location of markers is used for the initial stage of the project, or markers are manually adjusted as needed. But for our work, we made a script for this, which is called markers update, and is the third after the first two. You don't need to select any layers for it. When activated, it collects all frame markers of the current composition and updates them in all nested compositions, if any. But markers are not always used everywhere. Let's try something more useful. Duration of scenes. It's not that hard to change the duration of a scene in the composition settings. But when we have many layers in the composition, then each layer also needs to be manually extended, which is a pile of unnecessary work. For this, we have two additional extend comp time scripts stored here. They lengthen the selected composition by exactly 2 seconds. Why exactly 2 and not more? Usually, this is the average time, which is enough for additional information. If more time is needed, then I just press this button several times. In the future, you will learn how to change them in order to set the duration convenient for you. Their difference is that the first comp plus 2s lengthens only the selected composition and all layers in it, and the second, all plus 2s, also lengthens all compositions that lie inside it, if they do not have enough time to reach the end of the composition duration. The second option is a little redundant, but it is also needed in complex structures. We previously talked about the frame rate, so if you still accidentally have compositions not 24 frames per second, then you do not need to recreate them or do unnecessary work. Just select all the necessary compositions and click on the FPS 24 script in our panel. All compositions will be exposed to 24 frames per second. And this is where we will end. We have completed the preliminary preparation of the scenes, and we will show a few more techniques after creating individual animations. As you can see, there are a lot of pretty simple actions which together can take plenty of time and distract from more important tasks. Our sample workflow is not universal and may not be suitable for everyone. However, it is important for us to show that your work processes can become more complex over time, and these processes can be made easier. As motion designers, we are already accustomed to working side by side with illustrators, sound designers, producers, but it is equally important to work with programmers, scriptwriters, who can help you make your job easier and set the stage for more advanced work. We have prepared the compositions for work and have considered only a few scripts that make our life easier. We'll look at all of them later. And you need to analyze your experience, understand which scripts are most useful to you, what is missing in them, and what personal scenarios you may have. That's all. You can create animations from the following lessons in the same project or separately in new ones at your discretion. And we will return to these scenes in Lesson 8. Thanks and see ya!